Well, hello there and welcome to the channel, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about how to overwinter your tree ferns. Try not to kill them this time. Now, some of you think it's a great idea to remove all of the fronds at the end of the year. Well, I'm telling you, you're not doing that anymore. Well, you take your secateurs, hand that over to your wife, your husband or your cat and ask them to put it somewhere safe where you can find it later. And if they're anything like my wife Lorna, you're not going to see these again until at least next year. Now let's take a look at these absolutely fantastic specimens. So these are some Dicksonia antarcticas, more commonly known as the man fern or tree fern. We picked these up from an import that we got from Tasmania. And when it comes to overwintering your tree ferns, the conditions that you get in Tasmania are going to be very, very different to the conditions you get here in the UK. Not only that, we can't help but mess about with them, and which can cause a problem when it comes to overwintering. And I'll tell you for why. In Tasmania, you get massive rainfall, anywhere between like 1 metre and 3 metres of rain per year. 3 metres is an absolute monster amount, but that's quite localised, so you don't get that throughout the island. And it's a mid-story plant, so whereas in the UK pretty much always there's nothing above them, so they're always in direct sun. You know, I mean, I imagine some of you would have planted it so you get some shade, but on the whole they tend to be planted with no canopy and in full sun or part shade, but still no flipping canopy. And something that we like to do here when we're cultivating these plants is take off all the old fronds. So and I understand why. It's because they do look unsightly. But again, this gives us a problem when it comes to overwintering, because the engine room of these plants is not so much the root system that's down here in the ground, but it's the root system that comes directly from the crown. So this is the most important part of your plant. And typically, or pretty much always, when you see these plants growing in the wild, you'll have like a covering, like a skirt of old fronds that cover this area, and it gives it protection from the cold over the winter. Furthermore, because it would be under a canopy, you'd have a constant drop of leaf litter, detritus that falls down into this funnel shaped leaf structure and fills up in the crown, at the top of the crown here. And again, that can be quite thick and gives you another layer of protection from cold temperatures. And if you look a little bit closer, you'll notice, because I pulled it out, we have an irrigation pipe here. So all these three here are under permanent irrigation, and you need that because we don't get the rainfall in this country. And even when we're looking at overwintering these plants, you're going to still need to water the crown. You wouldn't water the crown in freezing conditions, but you know, when temperatures do rise over the winter, and it will do here on the south coast, then you can put that irrigation back on, because come the spring you want that crown in tip-top condition. So not only will you be watering, you'll also be feeding, but you won't be feeding as you would have done over the summer period. The concentration drops right down, and the regularity of your applications will drop right down. So you might be looking at every 4 weeks a diluted feed to go into the top there, because you won't thank me enough come the spring when this monster shoots out about 40 new fronds. Now let's talk about cold temperatures. Now the RHS, my favourite horticultural organisation, they list on their website that the Dicksonia antarctica is half hardy. So they're quite happy to say that it will take a temperature down between 0 and -5 degrees Celsius. And in Tasmania, which most of the time winter temperatures only hover around 2, 3, 4 degrees Celsius, you can get times when you get unseasonal drops in temperature. They can go down to about -2, -3 degrees Celsius, and they survive quite happily without any winter protection, mainly because they have their own protection in place with that like skirt of old foliage. They'll have the debris in the crown, and then plus they'll be protected by the canopy above them. But in the UK you need to be a little bit more sensitive to that, because these aren't the conditions that most people are growing their tree ferns. They're not going to have a skirt of old leaves, they're not going to have detritus in the crown, and they're certainly not going to have the protection of a canopy in most cases. Of course, some people are going to say mine are, but you know, you're in the minority. Now, if you're growing these plants, say in Cornwall, if the south-west coast of Ireland, Tresco, where you've got the protection of the Gulf Stream, then chances are you probably won't need to put in any protection whatsoever. But for the rest of the UK, is it really worth the risk when you consider just how much these plants cost nowadays? I would say no. So I would say protect them. Get yourself a load of fleece. Leave the leaves on. Don't take those fronds off, for crying out loud. And get the whole thing wrapped up and protected. Now you can go over the top, protect it with inside like a big sheath of straw, which is fantastic if you've got the time and the cost involved in that. Or for most people, a good wrapping of several layers of horticultural fleece will do the trick. My advice is to make sure that you give like a multiple layer wrapping around the top where the crown is, and then fleece out the rest of the fronds. Don't remove the fronds. Take a look at this clip. So the first thing I've done that you can see here is I've made a ball of fleece, and I've placed that into the top of the crown, put it in the center right there, because the crown is the most important part of the tree fern that you want to protect over the winter. So once that's in place, I tie up all the fronds, and believe me, when you're doing that by yourself, that can be a very, very tricky job, but you know, just have to persevere with it and get it done. And then the next part is to wrap a number of layer fleeces at the top of the crown, again to give it more and more protection. And then really after that, it's just get the whole thing wrapped up. Look at this girth on that tree fern. Have you ever seen anything so fat? So to conclude, make sure that crown is protected. Put in a fleece ball or something that will actually give some good bit of protection before you wrap it up. Do not remove the fronds. You need those there. Those fronds are full of sugars, carbohydrates, starches, and they'll be absorbed back into the crown if needed, in order to repower all the new fronds come the spring. And the last thing is, don't forget about watering and feeding. Do not water as much or feed as much as you were doing in the summer. You need to drop that right down, and you do not water or feed when there are risk of freezing temperatures. So all the time, some mild winter temperatures, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees Celsius. There's no reason why you can't put some water in. You're probably only looking at, say, watering once a week, really, maybe 1 litre, 2 litres straight into the crown, and feeding you're probably looking at once a month. And always feed after you've watered, and that is kind of it. And the proof's in the pudding, because you can see just how well all the tree ferns that I've been dealing with have looked, and they're all still flipping alive, and I don't cut the fronds off. But if there's anything you'd like to add, if you want to challenge me on any of my techniques, you're more than welcome to do so. Just put those in the comments. We genuinely would love to hear from you. Anyway, thanks for watching, and before I go, just one more thing. You know what it is. Where are my secateurs, woman? Right, now, just before you go, if you want to see more content, more behind the scenes stuff, and images that I've taken of some weird freaky plants over the years, then you're in luck, because we have created an Instagram page. So you can find the link in our description. You can find the link on our main page, and if I'm clever enough, I might be able to get a link somewhere up there. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you want to see more YouTube stuff, then check out this video here. That's quite a good one. And if it doesn't float your boat, then another one right there. And enjoy these while I've still got the strength, imagination and aptitude to make them. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.